20 minutes to 7 o'clock, time for us to look at the dailies and see what's making headlines in the dailies this morning. And joining me in studio to have that conversation and also to later on just look at the way it is, I have to my immediate left, I have Betty Adera, who's the KANU Women Congress representative, the Nairobi chapter. Good morning and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm also joined by Honorable Farah Maalim. Thank you, sir, for joining us this morning.
Pleasure.
And we'll dig in straight into what's making headlines on the dailies this morning. And we'll start off with the Standard. And on the headline is exposed 22 most wasteful counties. And I'll just name a few of them for you as per this article. We've got Lamu leading. We have West Pokot, Trans Nzoia, Elgeyo Marakwet, Kakamega, Vihiga, Nandi, Kisumu, Uasin Gishu, Homa Bay, Nyamira. And the list continues. This is as per a report given by the Auditor General, and he says that there was no evidence to show the officers from Lamu, for example, to use as an example, that attended a retirement training in Dubai, which they were paid for a whopping 13.4 million Kenyan shillings. Let me start with you, Mheshimiwa Farah Maalim, on this particular report. It's not the first time that the Auditor General has given us a report that is rather damning to the counties on wasteful expenditure. I mean, we could even look at just how the counties are spending their money. But let's start with just this report and your thoughts on it, and whether as a country we are really improving on our expenditure.
No, I think what we had hoped for in the devolution itself was that things were going to be managed better by people in the periphery, because the center was wasting a lot of money before we had devolution.
Right.
It turns out that we have just devolved corruption, we have devolved wastage, we have devolved pilferage, everything again to the counties. And then ordinarily, when you come up with this kind of a report, people should be in court. Nobody's in court. So quite often I tell people, look, corruption has become a national value. Maybe what we need to do is to mitigate it and give it certain cappings. You do corruption beyond 10%, then you definitely have to end up in court or something like that. Because there's all the talk.
Almost legalizing it.
Legalizing it, yes. You know, basically, so maybe we need to say, okay, up to a certain percentage, it's you know, people can live with it. You're not going to go to jail immediately. But beyond this percentage, then you definitely, somebody has to be in court.
In court. All right.
So maybe we need to have some kind of a legislation like that, because it has become a national value in the sense that the nation is the foundation of independent Kenya's history. It is corruption. And the corrupt are the most powerful, the corrupt are the richest, the corrupt are everything. They are the leaders of the communities.
And unfortunately, we seem to give them more space to even.
Absolutely. You see, we have assumed a culture, which is that it doesn't matter how you acquire money. You as long as you have the money, then you're good. You're a leader. You're a leader. You're good to go.
Betty, let me bring you in, and your thoughts on that, and more specifically that devolution was really to bring resources to the people for the benefit of the people. But it looks like, yes, it is benefiting people, but very few individuals.
You cannot be more right by saying that, and I completely agree with Mheshimiwa when he says that people need to not only go to court for me, but we want to see heads rolling. I would want to see convictions, and I would want to see people being sent to prison. This report is talking about 22. This is almost half the country are wasteful. And if you look at the top 22, counties that are wasteful, these are counties where insecurity should be their priority. Health and well-being of their women and children should be their priority. Their young people, their lives are in shambles. And you ask yourself, just the few people on top who are controlling these resources, where is their mind? What is the process of needs assessment? Where are they putting the resources that came to them? For me, I think we need to interrogate the whole structure of devolution. I think the thinking behind, the spirit, wisdom behind devolution is noble. bringing resources down, to Mama Mboga, in all the counties. But is that really the case? I don't think so. And I think as a country, we have a very good opportunity now with the referendum push to really look at devolution, with a toothpick to figure out how can we make it work. And for me, I wouldn't even put a cap in terms of if you're corrupt beyond this point is when we take action. Corruption is corruption. However small, however big, to me, I want to see heads rolling. Our women and children across the country and our youth across the country are suffering just because of people who are in power, and especially at county level.
All right, you've mentioned, the debate that's been going on now, and that is to do with the referendum. Do you think that would in any way change where we are as a country in terms of our corruption index?
First of all, I think it will open up the space for people to vent off, for people to converse across the divide, insofar as the current status. We have a constitution. We are not working from a vacuum. But it will give Kenyans the opportunity to look at it much, much better now that we've implemented it for 8 years, and tease out what's working, tease out what's not working, listen to each other, hear out voices of Kenyans right from the mashinani, coming upwards, and then together as a people make a decision on how do we want to make this work. And for me, I think the referendum push is not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I think Kenyans need to be having these kinds of conversations on a continuous basis so that women in Lamu, or women in Migori, or women in Turkana, can also feel that their voices matters insofar as how they want to be governed.
All right. Honorable Farah Maalim, do you think the referendum is something that would answer our question? Again, given that our constitution is extremely robust, it's not that we have a lack of laws. Just like you've mentioned, with this kind of report, we should expect people to be arrested, people going to jail, but that's not happening. Would the constitution be our answer? A referendum in that case?
No. We have a very good constitution. There's no doubt about that. After any constitution anywhere else in the world or everywhere in the world, it has to go through. It has to be operationalized first, and then as it gets constitutionalism, basically, which living within that constitutional framework itself, there are challenges that come up. You now see areas that need to be improved. So amending constitutions, repealing certain aspects of it is a normal thing. Adding a few things is a normal thing, and I think we need a referendum, in my opinion, and we need to have certain fundamental changes also in the power structure, because right now we have a president who is not accountable to anybody, and I think that's a problem. And then you have a cabinet who is also not accountable to anybody, because the accountability of the government is checkmated by the legislative, the elected members of parliament. So the cabinet is not in parliament. The president is not in parliament. So it was made at that time, and it's like a middle ground people met in. Some people wanted the regions as a focus of devolution, and say we have about 8 regions those days, or we have maybe 10 regions, whatever it is, and others wanted. So there was a quid pro quo. There was a trade-off. We'll allow you to take the devolution all the way to the counties and not the regions, but then you also allow us to have the executive president out there elected popularly by the people.
So that needs to be addressed.
That needs to be addressed. But the Constitution is not going to stop you from stealing.
Exactly.
The Constitution doesn't stop you from stealing. I'm impressed with this thing. For example, I'm looking at Makueni. I looked at all these counties that are now cited here. Although the presumption of innocence is there until proven guilty, which of course it's right, somebody has to have. But then Nairobi is there. Mombasa is there. Nakuru is there.
Kisumu is there.
Kisumu is not there. I don't see Kisumu in there.
Number 8.
It's there.
It's there.
Number 8.
Yeah, Kisumu. Oh, yeah, Kisumu is there. I'm shocked because I ordinarily I would have thought Kisumu would have been a different place, and I still believe maybe this must be something that was there pre my good friend Peter Nyang'ongo, because he's doing a very good job. But what also surprised me, and which also pleasantly surprised me, is Makueni. Look at Makueni. You can see the conflict between the governor and the MCAs always. That was what was the cause of that protracted court, and you know, in the last.
Yes, the last.
Yes, but here you can see that there is no wastage on the governor's mandate. The wastage is there in the assembly, which has MCAs, which has a certain element of independence in the manner in which they also use their own money. That is also an independent body. The whole independent